We're continuing our Advent sermon series, which is World on Fire, and these just pockets of beautiful shalom and grace and belonging in the middle of that. And so that's kind of our focus around, I think, this real just reality that joy is found in the dispensement, the giving of belong, and the receiving of belong. And so our brother, Paul Keim, has created an incredible spoken word piece around that, poem around that. He's going to share a little bit about it, but I wanted to just introduce that, and I'm praying that his work, that God's work through him, just kind of settles in our soul as we continue reflecting around our Advent theme this morning. So, Paul.
Is everyone all right? Well, most of you have probably heard this poem before. It kind of came out at Smalltown when we, before every gathering, we would read sort of our mission statement and our core values, which we're fired up about. But when you read a mission statement and core value to a group of people who are there to see a band, it kind of seemed a bit boring. So I started to just pin a poem, just sort of explain what our heart is behind why we opened up the space. And then I started meeting more and more people, and the poem became longer and longer and longer to try to describe every person who in our community who may feel like they don't belong. And I wanted to at least touch on, in some way, shape, or form, that they do belong. And so I wrote this piece, and it keeps getting longer, so I should probably shorten it at some point, but here it goes. For the skinny boy, hopeless romantic, swimming in a sea of masculinity, heart shattered into a million pieces, wondering, when will I belong? For the overweight girl, striving to airbrush her thoughts, putting on clothes in order to hide her skin, trying on another diet. For the paycheck-to-paycheck parents, overcome with the flames of consumerism, burned out with saying, no, we just can't buy it. Wondering, when will we belong? For the elderly, walled up in a rest home, lost in transition, having so much still to give, wondering, when will I belong? And for the ex-con, with no job, and mounds of debt with stigma written on his resume, on his arms and on his neck, wondering, when will I belong? For the outcast sitting alone at lunch periods, staring across the quad at the popular kids, wondering, when will I belong? And for the struggling mom, sifting through her Instagram, staring across the city at the popular kids, wondering, when will I belong? Perhaps not realizing that the popular, drowning in their popularity, striving to maintain perfection, are all asking the same question. When will I belong? So I make this declaration. You belong. You belong. You see, your presence, your planted feet, the space that you occupy makes our community more complete. Whether you are well-fed from conversation or empty with loneliness, whether you seem to be the life of the party or you can't seem to finish sentences, make dumb jokes all the time, every conversation you feel like a burden, eyes drifting around the room looking for a more important person. Listen. You belong. If you know exactly who you are or have spent your whole life still wondering, you belong. The self-disciplined and the addict, you belong. If you're used to saying the words, I love you, mom and dad, or if your life has been one long stretch towards a family you never had, if your foster parents are doing the best they can, but you all realize for the very first time, none of us are ever going to understand. If for 50 years you've been blessed to call the same place home, or traveled 1,000 miles and still have nowhere to call your own, if your life has been ripped out from under you, fleeing to be free, no longer in the same place but this place, now labeled refugee, you belong. If you're male, female, somewhere outside or in between, trying to lift your voice to that song that you need to sing, you belong. If you are rooted deep in culture or rediscovering your origins, unearthing past pressures, oppression, and cultural abortion, or you're living in a plastic experience where all the tastes are bland, and for the first time you're realizing maybe this isn't my ancestors' land. If you pride yourself with equity and feel you've covered all the bases, or for the first time, like an alcoholic, you're brave enough to say, "Hi, I'm Sam and I think I'm racist." If you were born with all the right documents in a nation that's filled with immigrants, or if your status causes arguments, if not treated as equal, your presence, beliefs, and people are often considered evil. Listen, no human being is illegal. You belong. No one's story is too odd not to be heard. I think of a Zulu word, Ubuntu, meaning humanity. All interconnected, 1,000 different versions built to lift each other's burdens. A person is a person through other persons. In the words of Teresa, whom we often call Mother, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. I am because we are. You are because we are. We are because we are. Longing to belong. See, there's a table prepared for all who are hungry, and it is free. No one is excluded, no matter your label or your history. And like a beggar, I have come with this bread I have found, not having all answers, but no longer bound. You who are loved, come join the song. Belong.
Amen.